Thank you for coming on this hot and humid Iowa night, right? We hope it isn't too hot and humid for the owls. When I've done this program out at the Coralville Reservoir and areas, I've been able to pull owls in. And I haven't done it down here. I've birded Hickory Hill Park for many years, and my heart is certainly with Hickory Hill. We hope we can preserve as much of it as possible. But while we're waiting for it to get just a little bit darker here, I want to tell you about some myths and legends of owls, and it's really amazing. They frequent lonely places, as you all know, and in China, here we say, the barred owls say, "Who cooks for you?" What do they say in China? "Go dig your grave." And as a result, they shudder. But it's "go dig your grave." And they also believe that the owl snatches away your soul. So if you want to preserve your soul, I guess you don't go there. In Bombay, belief is that men become owls after death. And if an owl lights on your roof, you have to pass a wooden thread below the crossbeam. It's just unbelievable when one starts researching all these beliefs. In Transylvania, it was called Transylvania, changed to another name in Europe, and then went back, didn't it, to Transylvania. Farmers walk nude around their land, outlining their property early in the morning to chase away the bad spirits that the owls brought in. Now, what if there are a lot of mosquitoes? And their whole thought is that they have to keep the evil spirits away. Now, I recall my grandparents, and we had a wild bird get in the house. And my grandmother was greatly worried because she thought that would cause a death in the family before night. And this is a German belief that has been brought over, you see, from Germany. So that's okay, that won't bother. Shakespeare quotes birds as ominous callings. And in Wales, an owl hooting around a house informs the family that the young girl has lost her virginity. Now, what if a family, you know, of owls resides nearby? We'd feel sorry for the girl, wouldn't we? Let's have some recipes. Dried and ground eyeballs of the owl made into a paste and applied to those of poor vision. This is a European belief in the past. And a compost of that restores their vision. Soup from an owl's egg cured epilepsy. Salted owl meat cured gout. And in Germany, place the heart of an owl under your left armpit to guard being bitten by bad dogs. Now, I would think that would cause a dog to chase you, you. The Romans, as you know, thought of owls, and carrying an owl meant victory. The generals carried owls in cages and then released them when they thought their troops needed to be urged on to win. Hindus, if an owl lands on their thatched roof, burn the roof. Get rid of it. The American Indians were good about our owls. They actually worshiped them. But only the spiritual leader could communicate with their owl. And if a shadow of an owl passed over one of the tribe, that meant that member of the tribe was going to have a serious illness. One of the first drawings ever made by man can be identified as the owl. And then owl broth cures whooping cough. And a favorite quote is from Thoreau, who says, "I rejoice that there are owls." Okay, I wonder, well, it's going on 8 o'clock here. We have 133 species in the world of owls, 19 in America, North America. And tonight we're going to concentrate basically on the owls that we see in Iowa and in Hickory Hill Park. The eye focus is 270 degrees for our owls. You know, we hear this theory that an owl can rotate its head completely, and of course we know it can't do that, but it does a very good job. I want you all to try something. Let's pretend that your eyes do not move. Look right straight ahead. All right, stare at something. Now try to move and see something else. It would be very strange, wouldn't it? Really would. But they have remarkable sight day or night. And the largest owl has a 50th of the human weight. Its eyes are as large as ours, and its sight is 100 times better. So this makes them, and they're wonderful parents, but have any of you been around when, in the fall, when the adults chase the young away? Have you heard those sounds? They're horrendous, just horrendous. They're wonderful parents, they've taken care of these babies, they've raised them, and we happen to have had great horned and barred owls come together in our yard at times, and that they sound almost human when they scream. They really do, screaming and fighting. So sometimes when you hear these noises, you wonder what you are hearing. So let's see how we're going to do here with our slides. So we talk about owls as being enchanted. Now, are you able to hear me? Good, good. And we have been chasing owls for years. We have many publications, Owls of North America. And what is an owl? And we have a blank space there, right? Well, we'll talk about what an owl is. Now, this actually covers all the owls in the United States. But you can see the variance in size. There's an owl, a little owl, that I want to mention to you later, and I'll show you a picture of it, that's the same size as a bluebird. And here we have a variance of sizes. The owl, you have a long-eared owl there, the second from the right up towards the top. You have screech owls, and the screech owls are divided, but we have had screech owl out here in Hickory Hill. And they're divided into like eastern and western species. And here on the top, we have the great gray owl, which does come into Iowa at times. We have the great horned, which we have here in Hickory Hill Park. The all white is the snowy, and it comes down every winter. Not lots of them, but we see them. And here we have the great horned owl. I found out this afternoon, and I don't know if it's the humidity, at one point there's going to be rather a screech here in the tape, but that'll be the end of it. Okay. Our great horned owl says hoo, 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 hoo. Do you pick that? Hoo. And I, at times, think I hear a dog barking in the distance. They can be in your yard, but they have this distant effect to their voices. And it's 5 tones, hoo, hoo, and hoo, hoo, hoo. Dave, why don't you point that baby owl out? This is not a bad picture. It's a good picture.
Right here. Here's the eyes right there.
So, do you see it now? This was a family out on Mormon Trek Trail, just west of town. And there were 3 baby owls in there. We would walk out in the evening to watch them. And there were a couple young boys that were always beating on the tree. Well, there didn't seem to be much we could do to stop them. And what happened then, we went back a couple nights later, and the tree had been broken off. And I doubt that the owls survived. However, baby owls will climb back up to a tree. If they fall out of a nest, they will use their claws and hang on to the bark and work their way up. So it isn't all, but when they lose their nesting tree, that is scary. More baby horned owls. This was taken up at Lake McBride out at the Nature Center. You'll notice the little tufts coming out on this baby owl. They are not ears, and it does not mean a thing. It's basically, I would say, decoration. An owl has ears. One ear is down, low, behind this facial disc, and the other one is up much higher. In working with school children, I noticed one day when I told the children this, a little boy was pulling on one ear real hard, trying to get the other one up. And he said, boy, would I ever look silly. But it's amazing. Their hearing is so acute, and this is one of the reasons, whereas we're completely balanced with our hearing. In between each owl call now, there will be an intermittent slide, and basically they will refer to Hickory Hill Park. I wish that I had started collecting books about owls for children years ago. I think the time's passed for me, but perhaps for some of you, if you're interested in owls, start checking Crowded Closet, Salvation Army, any of those places, and you'll find many books about owls. This is an owl in our backyard. It's a barred owl, the one we have here in Hickory Hill. And this is, well, it was on our back wall, Dave, where we have a small bird watering device. And it would come in at noon when we'd have lunch out there. I often thought, should I ask them if they want a tuna sandwich? But the young, this is one of the young, they were very adapted and bathed in my garden fountains. And this is the owl that says, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? And you'll hear it right over here, too. Did you get the Who Cooks for You? We'll back up here a minute. The two young owls growing up in our yard and gratefully eating chipmunks. One was of a dark face, as you see here. We call this one him. And one was of the light face, and we called this one her when we referred to them. And we had a farmer call us and say he had a snowy owl on his farm. It's a little too light yet for this slide. This was a barred owl. It was, and happened to be one of the pure white faces, which we've never seen any other time, but it does happen in bird life at times. And this is still the barred owl. Note that this Who Cooks for You owl has big brown eyes, dark eyes, and a rounded head. And you see the barring going across. Now this owl, you won't believe, it's the long-eared owl. It comes to see us, it nests up north, but it comes to see us every winter, and we'll often find them in a group like 6 or 7 in a tree clustered together. They're very social within their own area. And this is the long-eared owl, and when you hear it, you'll think it's in pain. Here we are. Now this is the same owl, and it's in a threat posture. We're down in the Amana Woods at the year ago, and this owl fluffs out and takes a threat posture at you. And then also, they'll get right against the trunk of a tree or a big limb, and they seem to grow. I've stood there with my camera, and I'm so amazed by how they twist and turn. They're trying to look just like part of the branch of the tree, and then I forget to take pictures. But this is the long-eared owl, and it is in Iowa. Now we have the short-eared owl at Iowa, also in the winter. And it often it's out in the open and often flying over. We used to have set-aside fields, you know, and that's where we would find them. And their flight is, it's really a beautiful flight because they are about this far off the ground, and they're looking for mice and rodents. And they too have, you know, a light or dark color phase. That's the long-eared owl finishing up. This is the short-eared owl. Here we have have a Carolina wren. Now, I'm wondering how many of you people, any of you have the Carolina wrens in your yard?
There's some nesting right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nesting right on our potted plants.
Good, good. They nest at our house, but there aren't many.
The people in Grinnell swore that we couldn't have them.
There are very few of them, yeah.
Then you're all
And then we have the barn owl. Now, we no longer have barn owls to any extent in Iowa. A farmer in southwest Iowa has had them nesting in his barn for a number of years. At one time, they tried to stock them at Otter Creek Slough over by Tama, but it didn't work out. You see how different they look. You see their heart-shaped face. Pardon?
Why were they stocking?
Well, it's the DNR program where we're trying to reestablish wildlife in Iowa. They've, stocked otters and it's worked. They stocked the turkeys and it's worked. The swans are coming back. And they wanted to get this owl back. But the great horned owl eats the barn owl. So it didn't work very well. And we found them nesting in silos. And they do this strange type of call. And this is a baby down in the silo, and you can barely see it. Okay, do you see the nest? That's a barn owl nest down in southwest Iowa. And this farmer is so enthused about them nesting at his place that he put a big nesting box up in his haymow. And he took us up, and all we could do with the camera was hold it out over the box because we didn't want to disturb the nest. And fortunately, we got a picture of the eggs that way. And due to a local organization, the Johnson County Songbird Project, the bluebirds are returning. And what Jim Walters tells us, this is the highest population that's ever been counted this year. So that's encouraging. And here we look into a bluebird nest. Now, for the daytime hunter, being the owl, and of course these slides would be much better in the dark, but you see, during the daytime, you see the shape of the retina on top, the lens, the cornea, the iris, a relatively small window with a flat lens throwing a large image. And a large posterior chamber. Then down at the bottom you see the eye adapting for the nighttime hunter with very little light. And it develops an entirely different shape. Now, have you watched an owl grab a rabbit or a chipmunk or something? They have 4 claws, and you'll find that 2 of the claws, they're very, very sharp, as you can see, go forward, and then they can bring the other 2 from the back. So that assures them of catching their prey, and they seldom miss. And here we have a close-up of the feathered wings that are silent. It's like a comb, if you take a comb and comb through, and you never hear a sound as they approach. And here's a pellet. Birders often walk evergreen areas in the winter, and if we see a pellet under a tree, we know an owl's been there, or if we see whitewash, that also indicates. And so quite a few science programs use the now order pellets and have children cut them up, check them out, that type of thing. I had a little boy tell me that, says girls don't like to do that. And he said, so I do it. And he said, all but one little bone, I put together a whole mouse. So he was really taking advantage of the learning process. Here is an owl that we have seen in Iowa different times. It's the great gray. It's the largest of our owls. It's actually a Minnesota resident, but it does come into Iowa at times. Not all the time, but quite a bit. And it is big. This one was a visitor at one of our birding banquets. It had fallen out of a nest 3 times. Its siblings had kicked it out. So the man took it home and adopted it. And it was just as calm in a room of 200 people, but its eyes never left him. It had absolutely adapted to him. The snowy owl also comes down. It nests far north. It's amazing. If there's a good population of lemmings and food for a snowy owl, they will have up to 13 babies. If the population is down, maybe they won't raise a family that year, or maybe just 2 or 3. Somehow they have the intuition and the knowledge to do this. And as we drive through the countryside, you look in the distance, and perhaps you'll see a snowy owl on a fence post. I really think we better put some of these wooden fence posts in a museum. They have disappeared. We have very few left. And it sounds like a carpenter's hammer. This particular owl was on a light post. You know where the Cove restaurant is on the way to Davenport at I-80? It stayed on this, very smart owl, stayed on this warm light fixture out over I-80 for 3 weeks during the winter. The young and the female are darker than the males. And you see how dark the babies can be? They will end up being white and a snowy owl. And as you look at these pictures, note the color of the eyes. Now, when I ask children what they see in this tree, do you see what way back in there? They'll tell me, well, is that a chipmunk? No. This is my favorite owl. It's the saw-whet owl, and it's with us every winter, and it has been in Hickory Hill. I've seen it different times up at the other entrance, and one winter, one of them stayed all winter at a some evergreens up there towards the top. And we find it out at the Hawkeye Refuge. This little owl is 7 inches. Now that isn't very big, is it? And for school children, I take a glass that's 7 inches high for them to get the concept of how little this owl is, because I think they think owls are all big. We laugh at our house about a thank you letter I received from a little girl. She said, "Dear Mrs. Knight," N-I-T-E. She said, "Thank you for your program. How many times did you put the owl in the glass?" So I think I missed on that one. But they are just charming, and you can walk up within 3 feet of them, and they'll just stare you down, but they are not about to fly in the daytime. They hunt only at night. These are the babies, and this is a borrowed picture. I have never seen the babies, and I hope to sometime, but they're up in northern Minnesota. This is a sketch of the same owl made by Barbara Boyle, who does note cards for the Johnson County Bird Project. And as you know, owls decorate many, many items, many magazine covers. Now this will show you what a photographer does in trying to get a picture of an owl. This is the boreal owl, and it is in Minnesota. And we made 5 trips up to Duluth before we found this owl. And I mean 5 trips, walking at 1 o'clock in the morning in 20 below zero weather. And then, of course, what happens? And see, we were making sure we got a picture of it. And now this owl's about 9 inches, so it's not a big owl. But it didn't fly, and the reason was this one was just at a nature center, and the snow was way over our knees. And the employees there, each day at 4 o'clock, released a mouse. And it would just drop right down and get its day's lunch. How many of you have watched the hickory unfurl in the spring? Isn't it beautiful? You should all do that. When it comes to something in the floral family, the hickory, as it opens up, and it does this within a day's time, within 2 days at least. So here we have a portrait for Hickory Hill. Here's another bird that is just across the border. It's up in Minnesota. It's a Midwestern bird, so to speak. It's a hawk owl. We spent 4 weeks in Alaska chasing birds, looked at the top of thousands of evergreens, looking for the hawk owl. We didn't find it in Alaska. We got home, and this bird showed up at Waterloo, Iowa, and stayed for at least 3 weeks. This bird we found along the roadside It was nesting in northern Iowa, actually in a hog lot. It's the burrowing owl. It too is a small bird, a small owl. I wanted to show it to you because it lives in the hole in the ground. And the Indians have called it the priest of the prairie dogs because it often nests in prairie dog areas because the tunnels are already made for it. But when I have walked up to this bird, and it has long legs, and it's a little owl again, it stomps at you and really threatens you. You know, here's this little bird. And I always think what the song about Flatfoot Flugie, because it just takes its feet and keeps time. Now I wanted to show you this little bird because it's just unbelievable. It's probably the 8th wonder of the world. It's very, very small. But I have, and it's down in Arizona and the Texas, some of the Texas areas, the ferruginous owl, pygmy owl. But look up in the right-hand corner. See the fake eyes on that little bird? Isn't that amazing? And I have stood and looked up and thought I was seeing the front of the bird, and actually I was seeing the back. The creator and his design team did a wonderful job, didn't they? This is still the little ferruginous owl calling. And then there's the screech owl, and it too has been in Hickory Hill. Up at the other entrance, we used to see one looking out of a perfectly round hole in a tree, which was just the way one should see one. But it's a noisy little soul. Two phases, the gray and the rust color, both here in Iowa. And I was doing a program for one of the university clubs, and when I started this call, a woman said, that's what, when the woman was murdered. And I couldn't imagine what she was talking about. She had called the police. She heard this call. And she said she lived on the West Branch Road, and when she heard this call, she knew someone was being killed. And why don't we see owls more often? Well, they just adapt themselves. Here we have a screech owl in a crevice of a tree. They twist their bodies. Look how it's disguised its eyes. You'll walk right past it. You won't see it. And I rejoice that there are owls through. So let's give a salute to the 4 owls we know are in Hickory Hill. This is a portrait of the great horned owl with the yellow eyes and the ear tufts. This is the barred owl that we have over here on the creek. The brown eyes, the round head. This is the saw-whet. Spunky little owl, isn't it? And here it is looking out of a hole. And I had hoped, but it's not very likely, that we would possibly hear a whippoorwill out here. I've been able to get them to answer in out of the refuge once in a while. Yes, and at Kent Park. But look at the eyes and the location of the eyes and the whippoorwill. They're over on the side of the head. And with the owls we've all talked about, the eyes are straight forward and set. Here's the nest of the whippoorwill. And thank you for being here.